Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. My guest this week is Steve Dyke. Steve is the chief of the conservation section of the Game and Fish Department. He and his crew have been working on a project called the State Wildlife Action Plan, or SWAP. Steve, this has been quite a labor for you guys. You've been working on this for a couple of years now.
It is. Thanks for having me, by the way. But it is. The SWIG program and the State Wildlife Action Plan, they're somewhat tied, but it's been around for 10 years. Initially, it's a federal cost share grant program that the federal government administers and through us. And there's requirements that come with that. And we're at a critical point. We're at a 10-year juncture where we need to take a look at and review the State Wildlife Action Plan, which is kind of the overarching, kind of a general, broad, strategic level plan that kind of guides us in how we manage.
As a department guides us, right?
Correct. It's a department plan, and it guides us in how we manage these species of conservation priority.
Why now?
Good question. Again, due to federal requirements, we're mandated to review the plan at no longer increment than a 10-year increment. And we're at that. Our first plan was completed and approved in 2005. And now, 10 years later, there's a requirement that we develop and review the plan and get it approved. And then additionally as well, things change. We've been obviously looking at these rare species now for the better part of 10 years. We've been gathering information, getting new information on them. Their species range in abundance and distribution. We're learning more about the problems that's affecting these species, that's making them decline. So we're also incorporating those aspects of the new information into the plan, the SWAP as well. So
some people might be familiar with some of the work that you folks have done through that. You mentioned SWIG, the State Wildlife Grant Program, and we've done a number of stories in the North Dakota Outdoors Project on some of the amphibians. It encompasses the whole scope of wildlife in the state.
It does. Its mandate, the SWAP mandate and SWIG mandate, is one that we're focusing on species in decline. Traditionally, the department has looked at the game species, and there are obviously numerous avenues for funding at which we've been managing game species. Non-game, on the other hand, has struggled for funding, and until SWAP came along and SWIG came along, we struggled with funding, with dedicated funding. We have dedicated funding, have had it now for the better part of 10 years. We've been able to look at a whole array of different species. These species that are in decline, typically they're non-game, not always, but typically they're non-game. And things like passerines, raptors, turtles, snakes, frogs, small mammals, rodents, fish species that we don't typically, many people probably don't think about, but the smaller, maybe more we associate with prey species, things of that nature. So, yeah, wildlife. Nonetheless, these are wildlife that our department is vested with keeping common, and for the citizens of the state, these are public resources as well, every bit as a white-tailed deer or sharp-tailed grouse.
People read and hear about some of these species from time to time. Sage grouse, of course, pallid sturgeon, things like that. Give me some examples of some of the things that the SWAP program deals with. You deal with butterflies, for sake of example, too.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up insects. It's typically an area that our agency had not been involved with, and with the requirement of SWIG, it's not just vertebrate species. We're now vested with the responsibility of taking a look at insects, and it's a huge issue. Just to give you some perspective, the department in its various programs for game probably looks at around 150, maybe a little bit more. That's 150 species. With insects, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of potential species that we need to find out more about their status. What is their population? What are their populations doing? Are they declining? Are they stable or whatnot? But we'll probably talk a little bit about our species of conservation priority list itself, and that's the list that we have developed. It's a draft list that that we think are the 115 species. That's our current draft list. That's how many species we have on it for the state. But on that list of 115 species, 4 of which are now butterflies. And so that'll be a new venture for us, a new area of expertise that we'll have to develop and hone, and so that's going to be a challenge.
It's been 10 years since the last SWAP plan was implemented. Obviously, there's going to be some major changes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We've been pretty busy in 10 years, and our partners as such, and we've got a lot of new information about species distribution, their rareness, what their numbers are doing, what their habitats have done. Are they increasing? Are the habitats stable? Are they decreasing? What some of the threats are that are affecting those species? What some of the conservation actions that help them? What as management authority can we do to help them? So we've learned some new things in that nature. So all of that will be and has been incorporated into the document, and should help us, going forward for, hopefully another 10 years once we get the plan approved.
Where do you glean a lot of this information from that you gathered for the SWAP program? Is it college studies? Is it?
Yeah, good question. Again, it's actually an array. We obviously don't have enough money to go out and just do what we want willy-nilly. So what we to try and make the buck go as far as it can, we're looking to do things on the cheap. We partner with universities. Grad students come a little cheaper. So we've obviously had numerous grad student studies. We partner with other conservation organizations that may be doing somewhat the same thing, but maybe not focused as much on these species. So we share some dollars. They're able to do a little bit more and get information on the species they may not otherwise have done. So we're partnering with other what I call conservation organizations as well. So
it's a requirement that we allow the public an opportunity to be a part of this. They can participate in the review of the State Wildlife Action Plan. How do they do that?
Yes, you're exactly right. It is a requirement. We've started the review process actually sometime in 2013. So we've been working on it now for almost 2 years. I would point out that a milestone of sorts was reached in June of 2014 in our Outdoors magazine. We kind of showcased what we thought was our list of species of conservation priority. And we got some feedback at that time. We've continued to work on the plan for the last year since then, and kind of refining parts of the plan, showing it to other agencies, showing it to other entities, getting feedback from them. We're now at a point where we've got a pretty good working draft, and yes, we would like to show it to the public. We're going to do that. We're going to put it up on our website. We would encourage members of the general public to go there, take a look at it. It is a big document. You'll find that it is at least several hundred pages. Maybe you don't want to review the whole thing, but again, we would encourage you to at least go out there, take a look at it, tell us what you think.
There's bound to be some things in there that people are interested in, whether it be insects, amphibians we talked about, birds, animals of all types. Exactly.
I mean, it covers a wide array of taxa, and I'd have to believe that there's something in there of interest to almost everybody that's interested in fish and wildlife resources.
Steve, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
If you would like to add your comments to the State Wildlife Action Plan, go to the Game and Fish Department's website at gf.nd.gov and click on the link on the home page. That will open the document that you can read at your leisure, but be warned, it is very lengthy. There is a link on the site for you to add your input. Public comments will be accepted through June 8th. For Steve Dyke and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.